Hi, good morning, Julian here. So today I have a question from Buntai, I hope I've pronounced your name right, and Joan. Although actually this question isn't unique to them, it is a question that I get asked very, very often. How to improve English speaking skills? So that is the topic of today's video. Okay, so how to improve English speaking skills. Now I have made videos about this before, and basically every person who makes English teaching videos on YouTube has made hundreds of videos about this topic. Yeah, there are thousands of videos on YouTube about improving your speaking skills. But I'm gonna say that, well, not just speaking, but all English basically comes down to a very simple two-step process. 1. Learn the language that you need to use in your specific situation. And 2. Do it. It really is that simple. It basically just comes down to those two things. Learn what you need and then use it. And at first it might be difficult, but it will get easier over time. This said, here are some tips, free tips in fact, that will help you make the process a little bit easier and a little bit faster. My first tip is to make very specific goals. And this is why I said learn the language that is specific to your situation. And I've talked about this in videos before, but the different situations need different kinds of English. If you're going to be a newscaster, you're going to need very different skills to what you're going to need if you just want to have conversations on travel. If you need to use English in your job, for example, giving sales presentations overseas, or being an engineer, or something to do with IT or something like that, each kind of field is going to need its own kind of vocabulary and its own kind of language. So make very specific goals. Really think about what you need in your situation and why, and focus on that. My second tip is to focus on vocabulary more than grammar. The reason I say this is because you can communicate a lot with only vocabulary, but with only grammar you can communicate nothing. And to be honest, although English learners learn a lot of different kinds of grammar, like the present simple, and then the past progressive, and the past progressive perfect, and you know, the list just goes on and on. There are so many of these kind of tenses and grammar forms. But the reality is that we don't actually use most of those most of the time. So yes, I guess you do need to learn them, although I'm still not too sure whether you actually do or not. I guess yes, you do need to learn grammar, but no, grammar isn't the most important thing. Definitely focus on vocabulary much more than grammar. Learn the words that you need for your kind of specific situation. Focus on that mainly. My third tip is to try and get used to speaking in phrases, not in individual words. This is where a lot of the problem with kind of translating in your head comes from, I think. It's kind of the way people teach in schools, the way people get taught in schools. You learn grammar rules and then you use that rule with vocabulary, and then what you end up doing is you end up having a sentence in your native language and then trying to translate it. And that doesn't work very well. Try and get used to speaking in phrases, because we do tend to speak in very fixed kind of ways. There isn't much, we don't use much creative language, if that makes sense. For example, this is why we have things like collocations and kind of fixed phrases. You know, we always say good morning. We don't say happy morning. We always say ride a bike. We don't say take a bike, with the meaning of riding it anyway. Whereas we do say take a train or take a taxi. But we don't say ride a taxi so much. Try and get used to speaking in these kind of chunks, in these kind of phrases, and you'll find things will be much, much easier, because you don't need to rely on grammar rules quite so much then. If you want specific exercises for learning these kind of phrases in these chunks and getting better at using them, check out Doing English Plus. It's not free, but I provide a lot of exercises for building fluency with this kind of chunking and using phrases. And that's about it. Again, to be honest, it really does come down to these two things: learning the language you need and then doing it. Again, check out Doing English Plus for more kind of specific exercises and things that you can do to speed up the process. But that is about it. By the way, I'm not sure if you can hear that noise in the background, kind of like a rumble. That is actually a washing machine, and I've been quite lazy recently and I haven't done much washing for the last few days, and today I just have a mountain of stuff that's got to be washed, towels and sheets and all sorts of things. So today I'm having a big washing day, and I'm making this video whilst I'm waiting for the washing machine to finish. So if that's very noisy in the background of this video, I'm sorry, but it's got to be done.